All right. Thank you again for joining me here on another episode of Phoenix Rising Live, allowing yourself to be reborn from the ashes or rising above the ashes or both, because that is what we are here to do, to rise above the past, to ignite our passion, and to empower ourselves to live a very meaningful and fulfilling life. That's what it's all about. That's our message to the world: who we are, how we show up, how we communicate to one another, the person that we are being in any given moment. That is our message to the world. That is our legacy. That is what we are creating. It's our state of being that manifests the reality around us. The environment is a creation from our own consciousness. And so it's essential, absolutely essential, to know your own inner worth, your own inner value, because when you radiate that inwardly, it then radiates outwardly. And when you feel it within yourself, you know your value, you know your worth, you know who you are, you know where your piece of the puzzle fits to the best of your ability. It's always becoming more known at a greater and greater level. But in this moment of now, you understand that you have everything you need and that you are entirely worthy of receiving love. You are entirely worthy of receiving the resources that you physically need to fulfill your mission. And one of the challenges people often have, particularly in the spiritual circles, is their worthiness in terms of dollars. And the dollars, the money you have, that doesn't predict your worth, that doesn't precipitate your worth, it doesn't even indicate your worth. But it does reflect how much worth you give to yourself and how much value you give to yourself. So this is something to contemplate, particularly for spiritual people that have not wanted to receive money for their services in the past, or maybe they have an issue just receiving in general. They want to give a lot, but they're not willing to receive a lot. And that's egotistical. It's important to keep that in mind. If you're overextending yourself, if you're overgiving and not opening your treasure chest to receive equally, then you're just being as egotistical as someone that's on the other side of the coin, who's really greedy and stingy and doesn't give, but they take. So it's just sides to the same coin. And this is how the ego is. And this is why it's kind of perplexing or complex or confusing at times, is because it's like, well, those greedy people are bad. And then the greedy people are like, well, what's up with those, spiritual people that are, have this aversion to money? And it's like they're on opposite, sides. But again, it's that same ego construct where they're coming from. So the idea here is, you could call it being a spiritual capitalist if you wanted that term, but I just look at it from being, holistic, right? You have a holistic balanced view, and you know what's appropriate in any given circumstance with different individuals. You think about a master like Jesus, spent just as much time with kings and people in high authoritative positions, counseling them, guiding them, as he did in the sewers, or the lower dwellings of where the towns and cities that he was in, helping people who had a lower intelligence level or physical issues or less money. And there's no difference. What is the difference is your approach to them, how you interact with them, understanding their communication, their languaging. So when you're in this world of knowing your worth, when you're talking to like a business person who has money, or you have your own business where you're helping people to personally transform, but also get a return on their investment, that's a different language. And money's often a part of that language. It's almost always a part of that language if it's business involved, because that's part of the communication. That's part of the construct of it. And so you want to have those skill sets. You want to be able to speak in the language of the people that you're serving fully, to the best of your ability, in the way that's most appropriate and most relevant for them. And then there's other people where it's not a part of the conversation as much or at all. Sometimes you're trading services, sometimes you're gifting services, sometimes you're receiving gifts as services, right? So there's a variety of ways to receive abundance, but you want to be well versed in all of them, and you want to be equally open to receive all of them. And you want to understand that it's not up to you to decide what that level of abundance is that you need to receive right now, right? Maybe you require a lot more resources to fulfill your mission than you've previously been giving yourself access to. And you'll note if you have any issues around the conversation of money or lack of money or poverty or charging. These are big themes for spiritual people to go through because it's all reflective of how you value yourself and your own inner worth. So where do you gain that understanding of the value monetarily of what you're doing? And we have, many coaches and leaders in our community here who may have gone through this process or are going through it. And it's important to acknowledge that you're the one that decides, but it's obviously based on certain merits and things that make sense. And you want to use your intuition and your discernment when you're deciding this, because in this field in particular, the pricing structure can seem a little bit arbitrary. There are certainly some industry standards to go by, but there's no body of regulation saying, this is what you charge or this. And in some ways that's great because there's no governing body dictating to you what is appropriate and what is not. But it's also up to your own discernment and intuition to decide how you're going to go about that. So that's the idea of your monetary perspective on what your value is, what your inner worth is. But again, the amount of money that you charge or the amount of money in your bank account, those aren't indicators of your worth. They're just opportunities to experience your worth, express your worth in greater ways, but they don't indicate it, not directly, right? Now you can use it as a reflective mirror and as a tool to grow and understand, well, I should really be charging X amount of dollars, but I've only been charging this, and there's a gap there. And so you get to use that as a lesson to grow for yourself. So there's lots of ways to utilize the tool of money and the resource of money for your growth. And it's not just the idea of receiving it and spending it. It's the idea, the whole concept of it. How do you relate to it? How does it work in your life? And rather than living with a poverty consciousness where you feel like you don't need a certain amount of money, etc., you can really look at these things and you can really have a look at these belief systems and how have you been approaching these things? Is that working for you? Are you being true to yourself? Because it's a wonderful tool to utilize for your growth, because there's been so many negative definitions around it, so many negative connotations. Typically, money's been used for power and control, egotistical purposes, right? Why do I say that? Let's just look at where we are as a humanity. And of course, my version of reality seems dramatically different these days than in my past observations of it. So, perhaps this doesn't apply to me in this present moment at all, and perhaps it no longer applies to you either. But if you use your past ideas about money and how government's been structured, how business has been structured, are companies using money as a resource to grow, as fuel, as though they're traveling in a car from one destination to another, or do they hoard it? And do they, keep it with inside themselves in order to, have control, have power, have certainty, have security? And of course, these are all illusionary states that they're creating for themselves by this. So utilize it as a tool. Utilize it as a way to really go within yourself and say, hey, what's my perspective on it? And allow it just to be neutral. It's just a prop. It's not a big deal. And so your own inner worth, your own inner value is not coming from anything external outside of you, but that can reflect it back to you. It can be used as an indicator, but it doesn't measure you. It doesn't say, oh, well, I have this house or this car, and therefore, now I'm worthy. No, right? You're just as worthy with or without it, but simultaneously not denying what's waiting there for you, not denying the opportunities that Spirit is saying, hey, Susie, hey, Michael, there's something here for you to take and to utilize and make the world a better place with. Because if you think about how are we going to balance out our economy, how are we going to create equality across the globe, money's going to be a part of that journey. And it may not be the final destination, but it's going to be part of the process. So allow this journey of discovering your own inner worth to be a process for you. Allow yourself to have the experience. Allow yourself to have the power. Allow yourself to have the certainty that you are manifesting your reality and that you can express your worth, your value in any way that is appropriate for you, in any way that feels true for you. Because that's who you are. That's what this is. That's the purpose of this, is to step into the unknown. And so that's a big part of what we're building here in the community, is helping people get over their limitations around money and helping people generate six figures in income. And we're not there yet because we just launched this thing, but talk to us in a year or two from now and we'll tell you how we did. But this is our goal, is to help everyone as a foundation get to generating $100,000 a year or more. I mean, that's everyone's right, just to have a high quality of life. And everyone needs to get to that level monetarily, utilizing the current systems that we have. And some of those systems are shifting and changing with, we've got like Bitcoin, and, that's might be a bridge to the next level of currency exchange that we have. But we're all in this together. So if we can really support one another in the way that everyone deserves, and in the way that we deserve to give to others, and support others in the way that they deserve to receive from us, and vice versa, that's what it all boils down to. And when we're supplying one another, it's so much easier. There's so much more energy. It's so much more palatable and fun. So that's the understanding of your own inner worth, knowing that you're always worthy because you exist here and now in this moment. You have everything you need. You exist and you're perfect. And simultaneously, you'll be presented with opportunity after opportunity to experience that worthiness, experience that value. And it's always going to be a new lesson. It's always going to be a lesson that takes you into an unknown space, a space that was previously a mystery to you, but then you experience it. And at first, it might be a bit of a shock to your system. It might bring on that idea of like, whoa, I didn't expect this, but yet you're being faced with the opportunity to grow in that way. So to fully embrace it is really the only logical thing to do. It just makes sense because that's where your growth is. That's where your inspiration comes from. Is that energy, like, hey, I'm stepping into the unknown. This is new territory. There's a natural energy that comes because you're discovering a greater part of who you are. So it's not so much about doing the things you fear. You may have fear-based definitions on stepping into the unknown, right? And you might have like hesitations, but you'll also deep internally know that it's what you need to do. And when you confront that, when you face that, when you step into it, and when you're surrounded with a community of support that's got your back and holding the space and, not pushing you forward, but they're definitely giving you some energy and momentum to keep moving forward, that's heaven on earth, because you're always in growth mode now. And you can always have 360 degrees of reflection to know where you're at. And that's exactly what we've created here in the Quantum Elite community, Phoenix Rising United, Noble Goldman. It's this amalgamation of different communities, different perspectives, different audiences coming together to support this common goal of knowing fundamentally our core worth, our core value, and presenting the opportunity to express that time and time again, every moment. So if you're with me, then just come on board with us. Send me a message here. I'll share with you exactly what we're doing. Of course, we have our live classes every day of the week now, so get in touch with me about that. And then my Phoenix Rising Masterclass is Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, so you're invited as part of my network to come and attend that. And I look forward to seeing you there, and I'll see you on the next episode. Much love, and bye for now.